Hey everyone, welcome back to Robotics. I hope you guys are doing well. Today we have our 25th lecture on nonlinear control. All right, so let's get started with a video. Now, this is a video of a rehabilitation exoskeleton. The idea is that someone would wear this exoskeleton and it would guide their arms through rehabilitation exercises, basically helping them regain a loss of motor function. I like this video because it highlights the importance of control in robotics. Imagine that you were wearing this exoskeleton. You would definitely want to know that it's safe and it's not going to take your arm and yank it backwards. From a robotics perspective, I want to make sure we develop controllers that can govern this entire system with all the interconnected links and joints and make it behave in the way we want it to behave. And so that's what we're going to be talking about in today's lecture. First, I want to show how we can design a unified controller for the entire robot arm. And then second, I want to introduce Lyapunov stability analysis. All right, so let's get started. In our last few lectures, we talked about something called independent joint control. The idea was I took my robot arm and I separated it out into different links and joints. I then developed one controller for each individual link. So I had one controller for my first link, another controller for my second link, and so on. The advantage here is that because I'm looking at this robot on a link-by-link basis, I can simplify it down into multiple different single input, single output systems. This allowed for standard linear control techniques and things like just PID control at a joint level. But now I want to change gears and think about this overall robotic system. When I do that, it becomes a multi-input, multi-output control problem. And I can show you why with the diagram down here. Here, theta d, that's my desired position for every joint along my robot arm. So that's where, again, how I want my overall robot arm to behave, where I want it to go. Theta, that's going to be my current position. Again, that's a vector. And my controller is going to input both of these. So it's got multiple inputs, each of these different elements of these vectors. And then it's got multiple outputs as well, because I'm trying to choose my torques tau for every separate joint along my robot arm. I'm telling the first joint what torques it should have, the second joint, and so on. And so this is going to become multivariable control. It's a very common control technique in robotics, and we're developing one control law for the entire robot arm. This control law will output a vector of n different joint torques. So we've got one equation that's selecting the torque for the first joint, the second joint, and so on. This is pretty cool because when we use this control analysis, we actually get to leverage the dynamics we found for a robot arm. We spent a lot of time finding these dynamics, and so I'm excited we get to leverage them when we are developing these different control laws. However, there'll be a bit of a downside as well. Because we've got this nonlinear multi-input, multi-output system, I no longer can just use my standard linear control techniques, and so we're going to need to develop something new. So just thinking about some of the pros and cons, one of the advantages of unified control approaches is that I can think about the stability and maybe the safety of my entire robot arm. A downside is that I'm going to have to come up with more advanced techniques in order to develop and analyze controllers because I've got this nonlinear multi-input, multi-output system. All right, so how do I design a unified controller? I want to start off with a bang and just show you an example of a standard choice for the multivariable control law. That's what you see right here. On the left side, I've got my joint torques, and these are the torques I'm commanding my robot to have. So I'm sending these torques to each of my different joints to say, all right, this is what I want to do. On the right side, I've got my equation for selecting those joint torques. Here is my position error. It's the difference between my desired joint position and my current joint position. And then here's my joint velocity. All of these are vectors because, again, I'm thinking in terms of my entire robot arm. And I want to just mention for the position, again, we're choosing these torques to make my robot move from its current position to this desired position, theta d. So this control law is going to govern my robot so that it can move in the real world. Now there's some other terms here that are a bit familiar and then some that are new. So one that's kind of familiar, I've got over here the gravity vector. We saw this before when we were coming up with the dynamics for my robot arm. So I've got my n/1 gravity vector. Then here, these are terms that look a little bit familiar. I've got kp and kd. They look kind of like the gains we had for a PD control law. And when we talked about that in the last lecture, those gains were scalars. Now they're becoming matrices. So I've got a KP, capital KP, that's going to be my proportional gain matrix. It's an n by n matrix. And capital KD, that is a derivative gain matrix, also an n by n matrix. Now, these are matrices of gain, so we get to pick the elements of the matrix as our control design problem. However, there are some rules, and we know that these two matrices, they must be symmetric and positive definite. So I've got one example of what this could look like over here. I've got my proportional gain matrix, and along the diagonal, I have the gains for each of the individual joints. So KP1, that's the gain for the first joint, KP2, that's the gain for the second joint, and so on. We'll practice this a little bit more in future lectures, but I just want to give you a preview of what this control law looks like. All right, so what the heck was the gravity vector doing there? Well, to answer that question, I want to show how we can combine this control law with our robot's dynamics. So over here on the left, I've got the control law that we were just talking about. And this is the control law that I use to pick what torques I want to send to the motors along my robot. Then over here on the right, I've got my robot's dynamics. And this equation tells me if I apply these torques, this is how my system's going to move. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to combine these two equations. I'm going to take my control law and just plug it in for tau right here. And that's what you see on your second line. You might notice that the gravity vector is on both sides. And so if I simplify a little bit, this will cancel out, and I'm left with what you find on equation 3. I've got the mass matrix times the acceleration is equal to the negative of the Coriolis matrix times my velocity minus my derivative gain matrix times my velocity plus my proportional gain matrix times my position error. So the reason that we include the gravity vector within our control law is to compensate for the effect of gravity. Maybe think about your own arm. Obviously, gravity is pulling that arm back towards the table. So to keep it in place, we've got this gravity vector. It just keeps our robot from passively falling over. In order for gravity compensation to work well, I need to make sure I've got an accurate model of the robot's dynamics. I need to make sure that this choice of G matches the real gravity vector that's actually governing the way my robot moves. And again, this just motivates us to make sure we come up with the accurate dynamics when we go through that process. Okay, so we kind of understand where we've got a gravity vector, but what the heck is going on with this overall control law? So couple questions you might ask, like, is this controller going to work? Is it stable? Is it going to cause my robot to move to that desired position? In order to answer all of these different questions, I need to introduce a new analysis technique called Lyapunov stability analysis. Now, this is a bit of an advanced technique, and so I'm not going to be able to cover every aspect of Lyapunov stability analysis. I'm going to simplify it down a little bit just for the purposes of this course. So, Lyapunov stability analysis. Let's say you're given a dynamical system of this form. X dot is equal to f of x. It's a pretty general form. This system will be stable if you can find an energy function v that satisfies these two rules. All right, rule number 1, v has got to be positive for every value of x except for x is equal to 0. And again, think about this as energy. So I want to have energy being 0 at x is 0. And you can think about that as the equilibrium, or the position we want to come to rest. So I've got 0 energy there and then positive energy everywhere else. So that's my first rule. The second rule is that the time derivative of the energy function, v dot, that better be negative or equal to 0. So I want my energy to decrease over time. Again, let's go back to our intuition. I've got my system, I've got my equilibrium, that's where I want to go. Everywhere else, I've got positive energy. If I can prove that with my choice of controller, my energy is going down and then converging at that 0 energy, I have a stable system. I've got a system that's going to go wherever it is I want that equilibrium to be. So that's the basic idea with Lyapunov stability analysis. We want to make sure that we derive an energy function that has these two conditions. So an advantage here is that this analysis, it's very general. It always stays in the time domain. You can apply it to linear or nonlinear systems. You can work with a scalar or with vectors. So it's a very general control technique. Okay, so let me show you an example of applying Lyapunov stability analysis. And I want to pick up with an example we left off with in our last lecture. Here I've got a mass spring damper. And you can think about maybe this is one link along my robot arm, and I'm just thinking about how I can govern that link. So it's got mass m, it's got a spring constant K, and then damping coefficient B right here. This is the viscous friction that's in that joint. So here's my dynamics right here. And I'm not going to think about the forces or torques yet that I'm applying to the system, just the dynamics. And so you can imagine that you've got this link and maybe you've kicked it and we're seeing it oscillate over time. And I want to show that it oscillates and eventually comes to rest. Specifically, it should come to rest with zero velocity and at its home position. So my equilibrium should be at theta dot is 0 and theta is 0. Now, we know from our knowledge in physics that this will be true. Like if you have a mass spring damper and you kick it, it'll oscillate and then eventually come back to rest at its home position. But I want to show that's the case using Lyapunov stability analysis. So step number 1, we need to propose one of these energy functions. And again, that energy function should be 0 at the equilibrium and positive everywhere else. So here's an energy function that I came up with. And I base this energy function on the real energy of my system. The first term is the kinetic energy, 1/2 mv squared, or in this case, 1/2 m theta dot squared. This kinetic energy will be 0 when I've got 0 velocity. It'll be positive otherwise. Okay, so my second term is what you see right here. Now this is the potential energy due to the spring K. So it's the energy stored in this spring, 1/2 K theta squared. Again, this energy will be 0 when my robot is at equilibrium or home position, theta equals 0. It'll be positive everywhere else. So overall, I've got a valid energy function that is got positive energy everywhere except for at that equilibrium position and velocity. Okay, so my second step is I've got this energy and now I want to take the time derivative. And the intuition here is I want to show that energy is decreasing over time so that my system ultimately comes to rest at my equilibrium. So here's the time derivative of my energy equation. I've got V dot on my left side and then my terms on my right side. And if you look at these terms, you might notice something familiar. I've got m theta double dot. Now this is a term that actually showed up in my robot's dynamics. If I looked at this specific link, I had m theta double dot plus b theta dot plus k theta. So maybe pause the video and think for a second. Can you figure out a way to manipulate this equation so that you can isolate m theta double dot and plug it in to this equation right here? Maybe you recognize you can just say m theta double dot is equal to negative b theta dot minus k theta. And that's exactly what I'm going to do in the next slide. I'm just plugging in right here. I've got negative b theta dot minus k theta. Now you get some really beautiful math where a lot of terms simplify down. So if I expand, I'll notice that these two terms cancel out and I'm left with what you see down here. Again, this is an equation for the time derivative of my energy function. So I've got v dot is equal to negative b theta dot squared. Now, this is a great answer because it's telling me that energy is decreasing over time. To understand why, remember that B, that's the viscous friction in my system, my damping coefficient. This is going to be positive for a real system. So I've got some sort of positive value for B right here. And then theta dot squared, well, that'll be 0 when theta dot is 0 and then positive everywhere else. So if my system has positive velocity, it is removing energy from the system. That matches our understanding of physics because, again, if my system has positive velocity, the damper has got friction that is removing energy from this mechanical system. And the more damping I have, the faster the energy is removed, and the more rapidly this mass spring damper returns to its equilibrium configuration. Okay, so because I've got positive damping, I know my system is stable. My energy function is decreasing over time. Great. And that energy is going to decrease until V is equal to 0. Now I have to unwind some definitions. Based on our definition of the energy function, which I showed again down here, when V is 0, I'm at my equilibrium position. This means I've got my theta is equal to 0 and my theta dot is 0. So my mass spring damper has stopped moving and it's at its home position. So with Lyapunov stability analysis, I kind of showed two things. First, I showed that yes, this system is stable. It will come to rest. And then second, I found where it's going to come to rest. It will be stable at the equilibrium, theta dot is 0, and theta is 0. All right, so in this lecture, we talked about how we can design a unified controller for the entire robot arm, and we also introduced Lyapunov stability analysis. If you want to practice these techniques and learn a little bit more about Lyapunov stability analysis, I encourage you to go to the practice set. You can find it in the description or the pinned comment. In the first page, I have the problems, and I've got the answers in the following pages. Once you've completed that practice set, I encourage you to move on to the next lecture. And here we're going to complete our analysis, and we're going to take what we know about Lyapunov stability analysis and apply it to our multivariable control law. So I look forward to seeing you there.